almost there, everybody. There we go. Okay, everybody, we're live at this point.
Thanks, Hallie. Is the audio good now? Yes. Okay, great. Well, also just wanted to say hi to Andre. Great to see you there. Also everybody else I said hi to, but Angela, I saw you come in with Leo. Great to see you guys. And everybody who's joined online, we've got Donna, Brenna, Miranda, Jane, Richard, and of course, Virginia, who's in both places at once, which is, why am I not surprised? So we may as well get started. Alicia, would it be helpful if I actually shared my screen so that we have the agenda on the screen, or is that weird or distracting?
I think that you should do it if you can do it. Can you do it, or do you need me to enable something?
Let me see. Let's see if I'm sharing the right agenda package. Yes, okay. Oh, it looks like it works. Does that work for everybody? Looks good. Okay. So let's call the meeting to order at 4:36. I'd like to acknowledge with respect that we are in Robinson Huron Treaty Territory, and that the land on which we're gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, known as Bawatang. That Bawatang is home to Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. Let's begin with a motion for the adoption of minutes. Could I have a mover? Again, this should be somebody who is present. That's Angela. I see moving. Is there a seconder? Again, somebody who is present. Thank you, Larry. Any discussion on the minutes? I see none. All those in favor, please raise your hand or indicate otherwise that you're in assent or agreement. Motion carried. And, oh, sorry, I shouldn't have raised my hand because I have to do the thing where you don't take a stance. I don't know why I can't remember that word because I wasn't there. But motion carries. Next, we have the declaration of any pecuniary interests. Are there any to declare? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 4, which is the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a mover for the agenda? Moved by Donna, seconded by Brenna. Thank you both very much. Any discussion on the agenda, items to add or remove? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand or signal otherwise your agreement, and the motion carries. The next item on the agenda is business arising. So we have a Culture Days recap, followed by ACAP application info sessions and the process review. So I will pass it over to Alicia for a Culture Days recap.
Great, thank you so much. So on page 5 of the agenda package, you can see that we have some notes here about community consultation. We had a pop-up on September 29th at Clark Park. We had some children's activities, and we were able to engage with people who were enjoying the Cultural Family Fun Day as part of Culture Days. We posed a number of questions on some large boards on easels and asked people to respond and basically indicate their thoughts on a post-it note or with my assistance if required. The questions we posed were: what types of arts and culture programs, activities, or events do you think are missing from our community? Why are art and culture important to you? How do you think the city should support arts and culture for everyone? How do you participate or engage in arts, cultural or heritage activities, programming, or events? And how do you find out information about arts and culture events? How do you prefer to get information? There was a lot of different information provided to us by respondents, some of it more relevant to arts and culture than others. Some of which had requests for buses and transportation, which is a little bit off of where we are, but some people had some great positive comments about loving the city and keep going on all the projects. And that's a literal quote. So more support for local artists. And as you see on page 5, there's a list of, again, that's a summary of comments. If you'd like to try, which you can see here on the screen as well, I'm realizing. So I don't think I have anything further to add, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Are there?
I see Richard and then Donna.
I do see that there's a comment for a request for city administrative support for grant writing. That seems to be a common theme throughout all of the, it came up in tourism as well. So we've talked to Travis and Alana, and I think there should be a program that they're going to try and get together so that all of the funding agencies might come and put a seminar on to all those people that might be interested in learning how the programs work. So I just throw that out there.
Thanks very much, Richard. And I think there's going to be something on the agenda tied to that soon too. So really salient points. Donna?
Alicia, is this a summary of the comments, or are these 20, if you will, comments received?
This was a summary of comments, but we had several comments requesting, for example, more Indigenous programming, more diversity and representation, but asked for in different ways. So I didn't want to summarize it too much.
Right. Well, so if you were to, in your own words, because I know you were there, and maybe Virginia has comments on these as well. I don't know if she was there or not, but if in your own words, what would you say would be the top 2 or 3 things that you heard from people who were there? And was it mostly families that day because there was a day off of school, or was it a broader based group of folks?
It was a mix for sure. It was certainly a lot of families, but certainly a lot of caregivers as well. And many children. It was just a nice opportunity to kind of engage the adults while the children had something to do as well, which was, I find, really helpful personally. And so with that in mind, I'd say the top 2 or 3 is consistently we heard people would like to hear more communication about arts and culture, and support for artists in particular. And so that could take a number of different forms, I think, but certainly I think support, it was certainly financial was part of the conversation, and then the city acting as a resource, just generally.
Thanks.
Thanks, Donna. Any other questions or comments? If none, I would just say a big thank you for doing this activity. I think it's really important to be able to have these opportunities frequently to gather input, even if it's in these smaller venues, and also for us to share it and hear it as a committee. And generally, I think it's a nice reminder too of, or I'm reminding myself in reviewing this, of the importance of remembering this role in other spaces to keep our ears to the ground about what people are experiencing and hoping for from arts, culture, and heritage in our city. So for the purpose of that, of course, of informing the work that we do here. Are there any other questions or comments on the feedback that's received here, or the Culture Days activities more generally? Is that Angela?
I just have one question, which I did forward to Virginia ahead of the meeting, just slightly ahead of the meeting. So I don't have the answer to it yet, but I do see that there are calls to implement existing cultural plan and the cultural policy. So I think it would be important for all of us to have a copy of that to be able to see exactly what that is and what folks are asking for.
Thanks, Angela. Virginia?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'd be happy to forward those over. I think they're on the website as well. If they're not, I'll make sure that they do get up there, and I will send both of those documents over to the entire committee.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you both. Oh, and I can confirm that both are on the website just because I was looking at it the other day. I believe you did include the cultural plan in our orientation, but it's been a while since then. So those refreshers are always really helpful. Thanks for that. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay. Do feel free to stop me if I'm moving too fast, but otherwise we will move on to ACAP application info session. So Alicia, would you like to share this information?
Tomorrow, actually, from 12 until 1, we're having an online webinar. It's for ACAP information session. That information has been blasted to our social media networks. We've paid for a paid ad on Facebook and through Instagram to get this information out to others. And it's been forwarded through your personal contact list as well. And so we're hoping for a decent turnout. There is no RSVP required for this event, so we don't know what the turnout will be, but I can tell you that in the meantime, I'm also offering individual sessions where people can contact me directly. And I've probably met with about 8 to 10 applicants at this point to have those conversations. So I'm expecting some tomorrow. And in particular, I was in contact with the executive director of the local immigration partnership, who suggested that maybe some of her groups that she works with would be interested in maybe attending tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that from 12 to 1. If anybody's looking for that information, it is on the Arts and Culture FSM Facebook page as an event. And I'd be happy to forward it. Or I will be placing it on Instagram with a clickable link in our stories tomorrow. But also, if anybody would like that information directly, I'm happy to provide it. If you let me know after the meeting, I'll send it along.
Thanks so much, Alicia. Any questions or comments from members? Larry.
Just a comment. I just want to say, I saw the social media and your ad popped up to me.
Awesome.
So that's good news.
Yes.
Yeah. So good job.
Awesome.
Larry?
I was going to ask how we tune into to the event.
Great.
I don't see it on the.
It's through a Zoom link, so I can pass it to you directly. But it's mostly through Facebook. Most people that have been wanting direct connection have been reaching out to me directly through the news release with my email directly, as well as my phone number. So that's been taken care of there. But also anybody who wants to join the session, it's more of a generalized, this is what it is for people who don't know, and this is how we apply. And then if anybody wants more contact after the fact, I'm willing and available for them as well. But I'll pass it to you for sure.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments?
Just good job.
Yes, I will echo that. This is something that we've wanted to do for a while, and I know that you've had a lot on your plate already. So that we're able to pull this off this year is great. I see us moving to a better place with this fund, where we are becoming more systematic in our approach, refining it, and making it more accessible to the citizens at large. So that's what I see. Of course, we will learn more and more as things proceed. Any other comments, though? And feel free to disagree with me.
Just shared it around. Cross-posted.
Great. That's a good point, Miranda. Just if you do see links or promotions of the event, please do share them so that they can get as wide an audience as possible. All right, any other questions on the information session tomorrow?
I think I will say one more thing, if that's okay. Although we'll be taking one-on-one meetings with people as requested, if we have a significant turnout tomorrow where we're not able to address everybody, I will host another one early next week. And just again, to continue to make sure that it's everyone's able to access and get the information that they need as well. But I really like to take the temperature at this moment and to see how many people are interested and don't already have this information.
Thanks very much, Alicia. Any last comments on this item? Seeing none, and we'll move on to the next item. But as I say that, I just want to put a little point of privilege for everybody else out there, that especially those of you in the Biggings room, I can't always see movements just because I'm looking at a very small screen. So my sincere apologies, Alicia, or anybody, please. Well, I guess Alicia, you have your finger on the mute button. So Alicia, if you could unmute if I am passing somebody by who's trying to get attention to speak, please do let me know. The next item is the ACAP process review. So this is to review the process for assessing the ACAP applications and to discuss potential modifications and improvements. I know that there's been people, a subcommittee working hard on looking at the ACAP process or application process itself. And I've seen some or members have reached out to me with some thoughts already. And I know that discussion is going to continue into the next phases as well. That's not something that we can implement for this incoming round, just because of when we're obligated to put out the calls for proposals and such. But it is really exciting to see those advances. What this item is about, however, is just a little recap of the process that we use for assessing the applications and looking at those areas of flexibility that we have within that if we want to make changes from previous years. Because if we do so now, we save time next meeting where we'll actually be reviewing the applications and we can get through more of them faster. So with that, I'll provide a bit of an overview. Perhaps I will share, I'll switch what I am sharing. So please bear with me. Here we go. Okay, so this is a very, I just put it in this document so that it was easier to see, but I've realized my font is small, so I'm going to increase it. Oh, that's the opposite of what I'm trying to do. There we go. Okay. So just a reminder of previous procedures. Packages, once they are received, well, first of all, I would say before packages of applications are distributed to us as members, they are reviewed by staff to ensure completeness. Any incompleteness is flagged before they are distributed, and staff also, I know, reach out to applicants who've submitted incomplete applications and request the missing information. But ultimately, if there is missing information, it still does come for us, just come to us, just so that we can, out of transparency, so that we can see what has come in, though it is flagged if an application is incomplete. And the historical practice has been that if an application is incomplete, it's excluded from the assessment. Once the packages are distributed to members for evaluation, then we have the opportunity to review and score applications based on the rubric that's been provided as part of the application process. That rubric is also accessible to applicants as well, so they see what they're being assessed on. And ideally, we try to submit our scores up to 72 hours before the meeting. I know last time Alicia was very flexible on that, and I thank her for that. I think I might have been one of those people sending you late scores, so my apologies. Contextual or missing information questions should be sent to staff before the meeting as well, so that they can be clarified with the applicants if necessary. That will allow us to ensure that we're not making assumptions about what an applicant is intending, and it gives them the opportunity to clarify where there's confusion. Also any answers to questions are distributed to all of the members as well. Even if it comes from one particular member, know that the answers will be distributed to everybody, just for the sake of if there's a member who maybe had the same question but kept it to themselves, it's better. We want everybody to have the same information in their assessments. The next step is that staff compile the scores that have been provided and distribute answers to those questions to all committee members. During the deliberations, when we have our assessment meeting, it is an open session, and the average scores are shared by staff, and a minimum threshold is set. Previous practice has been that there's been a minimum of 50% in overall scores for an application to move to this stage of discussion. Otherwise, it's removed from the discussion, and the reasoning that it was not scored highly enough is shared with the applicant later on after the assessment process. Last time we did increase the threshold to 60%. And the conventional process was that we would continue to adjust that upwards based on the availability of funding. And then we can adjust, we can raise that threshold at each of these sessions where we discuss the deliberation process. During the deliberations, members take turns summarizing the proposals, and each member has the opportunity to comment on or pose questions about the proposal to staff or the committee as a whole, though understanding, of course, the context that the answer to those questions might be we don't know. I guess that's the thing to bear in mind, because without the applicant present, we can't assume their intentions, though we may be able to share different perspectives from our reading of the applications, and that's part of where this deliberation process is valuable as a peer assessment tool, where we can gain from each other's perspectives on the applications. Certainly from our previous experience, each of you might have felt, well, I'm not going to tell you how you felt, but what I have felt in the past is that some applications are quite straightforward. Everybody seems to be on the same page, and other ones generate some very interesting debate and discussion. And so those are particularly for those applications, it's particularly important to have that deliberative process. Previously, we have done a rotation where every person leads the process of summarizing an application before general discussion opens. However, last time we opted, there was a smaller handful of people, especially because it was the first time evaluating these for many people, where we opted for just those who felt comfortable summarizing and alternating there to lead that process. But everybody, of course, gets to chime in with discussion. In terms of general context, members generally shouldn't comment or score on an application that they haven't read. Also, members aren't obligated to participate. It's not, nobody's going to force you to do anything that you don't want to do. And the guideline that we established was that there should be a minimum of 3 reviewers needed for each application, because we can declare a conflict of interest, whether that's because we have a direct conflict whether it's tied to us financially or a close family or otherwise, or if it's a situation where personally you just feel like you can't be impartial, or maybe impartial is not the right word, but fair in your assessment, whether it be for good reasons or negative reasons, then you are entitled to declare a conflict on any or all of the applications if you so choose. I think that more or less captures the summary of the process that we have used and the variations on it that we've used up to date. And I'm curious if there are any thoughts on that for this coming round, or if I've made any mistakes as well, because that's possible. So floor is open. Angela.
Hey, I was only around for the last round of ACAP, and honestly, it was a lot. I don't know how anyone else feels, or if this can be like summarized in any way. But as a person who, I am sitting on council, I do have other boards that I'm sitting on and other committees. This was a huge ask. Just the way that it was laid out, it was hundreds and hundreds of pages, I think is fair to say. I'm wondering if there is any way that these could be like potentially reviewed by staff or some way streamlined to come to the committee for like maybe a bit of like an easier review, if that's possible, if anyone else agrees.
Thanks, Angela. And I'll just provide a little bit of clarification as well, because I do want to make sure everybody knows that staff do review the applications. This task that the committee has been tasked with, and I don't want to say we all, because you don't have to as a committee member participate in it if you don't choose to, but it is to reflect the peer assessment process, which is a norm in the arts granting world, and so that's the motivation for why historically staff haven't why staff have been very careful to not either summarize or risk editorializing on applications, so that community members who submit the applications feel that the review process is arm's length from the city operations. But I certainly understand your perspective, because it is a lot to undertake, and I know that was an experience for many people last time, or that was a comment of many people last time.
So with that said, do you think everything in the package needs to be in the package, or is there information that we could maybe we could make the package a little smaller, so as to maybe getting, for lack of a better term, like, let's get down to the nitty-gritty here and like give me what I need to see in order to categorize who should qualify. Because, you know, I appreciate you saying it's voluntary, we can if we want to, we don't have to. It's not that I don't want to, I physically could not. Like, there was no, I would have been up like to the wee hours of the morning reading some of these applications. So I would like to. I just think that this is something that we really need to take a look at, and we really need to make like accessible to actually getting through, and having more committees, or sorry, more members of the committee getting to. Do you know how many are coming in? How many committee members returned?
offhand, I'd say depending on the number of applications because of conflict of interest, between 4 and 6.
Is that like 50%?
I mean, 6 is a quorum, so to see that we have 8 officially that can score these, so it's pretty good.
Okay.
That being said, I absolutely recognize that it's a large.
And if it's just me, then that's okay. Like I can live with, doing my best to try and get through some of them and hopefully getting through all. If the rest of you think that this is not an issue, then that like, bless my soul and I'll try and read it all. But if this is something that other people think is an issue, then maybe we should address it.
And I know it's not you, I know it's not just you, Angela. Don't worry. I have some things that I can add for context as well, but I'll just go to open discussion. Jane and then Miranda.
I just want to follow up on what has been said, because I was one of those who was very overwhelmed with the amount of work that was involved in the last process. And I was wondering whether we can look at this more critically and find a way of still being able to engage the committee, but in a more productive way. Not that reviewing the menu was not a productive way. What I was thinking, for instance, rather than receive all the attachments, if there is an internal team that reviews this, if they could be able, for example, to shortlist what their top, I don't know how many we receive, but depending on what the top number would be, and only just email the application package itself without attaching all the other documents. Because if they have a list that is saying this application has submitted 1, 2, 3 things that we are requiring, I'm thinking that should be kept aside. And so we just look at the application itself alone. Because then we are forced to still go and look at their financial statement. If they have gone through the financial statement and they agree that it's okay, we still don't need to review it. It's okay. So let's just look at the application only and try to score the application.
Thanks, Jane. Miranda?
And I was going to suggest specifically that in the case of incomplete applications, that committee that Jane is suggesting, or that oversight mechanism, could just say these applications are incomplete, and so we won't be sending them along, as well as the final reports. Sometimes we get applications from applicants who are previous applicants who also have to submit final reports to trigger their eligibility to reapply. And I think so long as those are received by the city staff and deemed okay, that's a big savings in terms of the amount of documentation that we receive and have to review. Again, not saying I don't want to, but if it's all well and fine otherwise, then it might be a good place to find an efficiency that way.
Thanks, Miranda. And Brenna?
Hey, I was just thinking about everybody's comments, and I'm not sure if it's appropriate, but some of the first things that I did when I approached it was break it down. Some of the simple, like if they identified a self-equity group or the event type, whether it's ongoing, one time, things like that, that aren't really summarizing the entire project, but some of these, I guess, more clerical details. I don't know if that's right or wrong, or if that would be helpful to anyone.
Well, it's absolutely a great way to assess. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Virginia? Oh, sorry, Brenna, is your hand still? Oh, okay. Virginia.
Sorry, I was just going to say that we probably could take each of the applications and do kind of a summary page, indicating that, final report is okay, that, there were marketing materials that were included, and try to summarize some of those other pieces that do take a lot of extra space in the package. I also think now that the packages have been broken out, the there's going to be less paper to be sifting through because it was one application for all types of organizations. So that should help reduce the amount of paper as well. So it is a lot of information. It's overwhelming for us sometimes as well. So I can only imagine how it feels to all the committee members when they start to sift through this. But yeah, we can absolutely take a look at trying to do some type of summary page for each application.
Thanks, Virginia. Oh, Larry.
Yeah, I sympathize with Angela, but if we're to decide if the members of the committee are to do the assessment, I think we have to have all the information. I don't think there's any easy way around it. I suffer just as much as everybody else, you know, you read until your eyeballs are rolling on the floor. You know, I look at the financial statements, for example, because there are ways to play games with things. I'm interested in how often they've done these things and references that they may have had. And, you know, I find the attachments are very interesting and very helpful. I don't think we should be making a decision on if this is our job to do the assessing. I don't think we should be making our decisions based on filtered information. That's hard, but I think that's why we're here. And I think that's the most important thing we are doing. I'd almost go as far as to say that is our major task, almost all we do. It's the big thing we do. So I don't think there's any way around it. But maybe there's a way to, you know, we've got it divided down into categories. Maybe we could do one category one week and then another category another week. You know, another way to make it just a little bit easier. For our counselor here, I don't know how she gets through all that stuff. You know, it'd be nice if she could do it. She can. I think she should just go through and get a flavor of what the applications are. But I think Angela's main job here, correct me if I'm wrong, is to be the liaison between the council and the committee. Keep an eye to see whether we're doing what we're expected to do. Be able to take that information back if she's asked. I mean, she's got the time to read it, fine. But I think maybe an important function is to be a liaison. That's why they put you on this committee.
Yeah, I mean, I just am used to whatever comes up in my committees, I do try and participate in. So I appreciate it.
But you can't do the impossible.
I cannot, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. And it's not for a lack of trying. I did try. It was a lot. So, you know, if this is how you guys want to run things, I'm happy for it to continue this way. But even perhaps like you had Larry had discussed maybe like moving it into category. Maybe there's like, and again, you don't have to, but a couple members on this category, a couple members on this category, a couple members on this category, to take down the amount of work and reading, and perhaps then folks could like really pay attention to those couple of or few, I don't know how many applications they're getting. Because I know personally for me with the amount that was there, I was definitely like, it was skimming at best. And I think like the amount of work that goes into this deserves good eyes. And again, if that's just me, so be it. Go ahead.
Oh, I see Luis's hand and he hasn't spoken for a while. So I will go to Luis next, but I just want to summarize where we're at in the discussion. So one thing that I wanted to check in with was that there was actually a proposal put forward by Virginia that staff could provide a sort of brief summary at the front of the applications. Larry, especially because you raised the point of wanting to see everything, would like the summary combined with like the access to all of the information do you feel like those blend well together as options?
Well, the problem is that you're asking me to make a judgment. If I don't have all of the information, you're asking me to make a judgment based on a summary, which involves somebody else's interpretation.
Right, but if you had both, would that be?
Well, yeah, both is fine. A summary is just great. You know, I'll probably read the summary when it's my turn to deal with one of the applicants, but I don't think there's an easy way out of it. I sat on the Ontario Heritage Foundation for 6 years. And we gave away millions of dollars once a month in a day. The applications were not as complicated as this. I'm afraid this is a fairly complicated application. Yeah. And I think that's part of the problem. But as long as you're asking me to make a judgment, I want to see all the information. I'm from Missouri. I don't want to trust the situation.
Very
Now,
good.
that may be just because of the kind of work I was doing. But I think that's the responsibility I was asked to take.
The one thing I just wanted to flag as well before I move to Luis and then Brenna, I recognize your hand, is that there's a subcommittee looking at streamlining the application itself. And I think you're absolutely right that in itself will make this whole process a lot more streamlined. And I'll come back to you, Larry, but I'm just going to go to Luis and Brenna first. Luis?
For me, it was just a quick comment. I looked into the applications. They were lengthy. I do agree with that. I don't know if I also agree with Larry. I agree with Caputo in the sense that it has to be streamlined. I would like to have all the information, but a summary would be very beneficial for everyone. But if there's a way to make it more digital, in a sense where, I don't know, a Blackboard or a portal where everything is up there electronically, and that way, when they do and all the reports are made available, it's an attachment, we can just download instead of finding our way through emails and applications and paper and all of that. I think it will make it a lot more easier, and if there's a way where we can submit our answers online through a database, I think it'll make it a lot faster as well. And it will be our responsibility to either take a minute or take an hour on each application to review it.
Thanks, Luis. And I see some head shaking from staff as well, but before going back to them for comment, I'll go to Brenna first.
Hi, thank you. I agree with everyone's feedback. I was just wondering, in terms of, I would like all the information because I would like to peer over that, and I think that's important. So I agree with Richard on that. And I don't know if we can make a very objective summary, but there may be a way to break down those categorizations so that people have kind of a better idea of what I'm looking at before I look through all these collated documents, right? So even online, you can categorize some of these in terms of whether they're ongoing, whether a one-time event, whether they're, whether they've demonstrated that they're focusing on a social equity group, those types of things. I don't know if they would be illustrating bias in one way or another, if we're just kind of highlighting stuff in the applications to give us a better overview. So that's just a suggestion, I guess.
I think you're right with that, Brenna, that so long as the language is taken from the application, it would be fair to summarize in that way. Virginia, I see your hand up. I'm not sure if you were planning to.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
I was just sorry, I'll just jump in just quickly. I think to what Brenna is saying, I wouldn't want us summarizing it in such a way that we're making an interpretation, but going through did they, here's the required list of attachments, and going through and saying, yes, all the attachments are there. Yes, they submitted the post-grant report. We don't necessarily have to include that in the application. It just becomes that checkbox that it was completed, and then you're going to know that kind of up front. And then we'll be able to group them now that we have the 3 applications. We'll be able to easily group them into kind of bundles, right? Here's all of the incorporated, here's the non-incorporated, and kind of break them out that way. So that'll help simplify that. But just adding in more of a simple cover page today. Is it a complete application? Is it not complete? And quickly go through those pieces. I do agree. You do need to be able to take a look, because everybody does see something different when they're looking at those applications. And that's how we get all those different opinions when we have our discussions. But just more of a brief overview.
Thanks, Virginia. And then I'll go to Larry because he's been trying to get in for a little bit. And then Miranda, I see your hand up, but I just want to check. Brenna, is that a new hand or a legacy hand? Oh, no worries. Larry.
No, my suggestion about dealing with categories over a period of time is, it's like you're asking me to eat the whole watermelon and swallow it and deal with it right tonight. But if you gave me a slice, or we put it into smaller bits that we did every couple of weeks, and then we meet and you put your averages together, I don't know if that would work. On the digital side, maybe it's my age, although I'm pretty adept with digital work, but I find I can't manipulate it as well. So I bother the staff for a hard copy, because I can write a note and I can compare this page to that page. It's just easier, particularly when you get here, because you don't have it all in front of you. You're always behind, you're always lagging behind the conversation. The other thing, maybe we should be stricter with applications that are lacking something. That's how they're going to learn. We learn by our mistakes almost more than we learn by our successes. You send out an RFP and you don't give them and somebody puts in an application and they don't give you the information you want. You ask for references and they don't give them to you. They're gone. They're done. I think we could be a little tougher in that kind of thing, particularly given the amount of money we have. We can invite people to come in and talk to staff if they have questions about how to put it together. And finally, this is something I wanted to speak about earlier. Maybe I'll raise the topic, and I don't expect it to be dealt with. We're giving a lot of seed money, and that's good. But it worries me that we're not doing a lot to keep what we have. So I know some groups in the city that are on a knife's edge, and they've been around for a long time. And I don't know how we help those folks. Like the Kitchener Symphony. Our symphony has had a hell of a hard time. The Comedy Guild has had a hard time. I don't know how we address that, but it worries me. Because we're out planting seeds here and there, but we're going to lose trees. Right. And I don't know how we deal with that, but I think it's to me it's important.
Very, very important points, Larry. I'm going to go to Miranda, and then I'm just going to maybe pause the discussion there just to do a little recap and check in with staff on some possibilities. And we may or may not continue if there's any further discussion on that. Miranda?
Thank you. Just a clarifying question, really. Picking up on what Virginia said, I think what you offered, Virginia, makes a lot of sense to me. That summary sheet that we're talking about then is more of a checklist than an actual summary. Am I hearing that correctly?
Oh, just to clarify, Virginia did have to step out for another appointment. So she can't answer your question directly, but I would defer to Alicia here.
I'm not sure what Virginia would say, but there is something that I use. There is a tool that I've developed to use on our end as we receive the applications in to make sure they're as complete as possible. I try to send everything because I believe that's the mandate from the council is that we provide all of the submitted documentation. So a couple of different things. I've got a list going, but I was going to say the quick version is that I do have a document. It does have the basics. Have these people submitted a post-grant report. Have they signed off for have the required documents and attachments. So to put before it reaches you, the committee members, it should be in its most final stages as submitted by the applicant as possible. And that comes with some caveats, of course, and some variances. If it's okay, do you mind if I do a bit of like a little bit more?
Yeah.
In terms of the portal that you mentioned, we have looked into that. It's an option, but it's quite an expensive option. At this moment in time, we're tied to this application or an application process this way, but we're certainly open to it and would like to explore that more as well. In terms of, so I mentioned the checklist. In terms of the summary, I agree with you. I think it's absolutely possible. In terms of this intake, I worry a little bit because of timing. I try to ensure that committee members have 2 full business weeks to review the applications. And so for us this year, it means that with the closing date of October 27th, that I'm hoping to flip them around legitimately by November 2nd, and then have them to you for the review on the 15th. And certainly not tied to that 72 hours prior to application scoring submissions, and just be as flexible as I can with that as well. So I worry here for that, but I'm certainly open to it and willing to do that, absolutely. And it's valuable, and I see that. And again, if it's just a summary of information, it should be okay. I'm knee deep in those applications as it is administratively, so so that shouldn't be a problem. In terms of some info is not being required, I'm not sure if I mentioned post-grant reports in particular. I've certainly been encouraging people and past applicants to get those to us outside of the packages, because they don't necessarily mean anything within the package. Again, we've talked about that at a previous meeting as being a note being checked off the list, and not something that people necessarily wanted to see. And maybe the conversation becomes, I think that's it for now. But breaking down the categories, it does make sense. And I think, as Virginia mentioned, into the unincorporated, incorporated, and individual artist applicants, that may help. I do see this going more smoothly this year. I do plan to move us to, in terms of like portals and online formatting, we're using the OneDrive, and I can certainly group those applications together for different people to access, so it's not just an onslaught of information, which it is absolutely overwhelming, 100%. So with that in mind, that's all I think I have to say about that. But thank you for the opportunity to speak about it.
Thank you, Alicia. So it sounds like we will do the summaries for this coming intake, like that's doable. In terms of subcommittees, I wanted to sort of just maybe think out loud about this, because I think in a sense, the people who participate in the grading do operate like a subcommittee, so it's certainly not without precedent, even though we don't like have a separate meeting. I wonder if maybe that is something that we want to have like a formal, or I don't think, and again, I don't think, thinking out loud, I don't think that's something achievable by this round, but perhaps that's something we want to consider, is having a subcommittee that reviews them and then brings them back to a regular session, or to your point, Larry, 3 subcommittees that review like applications together. The only thing is that those reviews, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alicia, because I might be, they will have to be in open session, which means that there's logistical challenges with coordinating schedules, and making sure that the meetings can be broadcast and shared on the corporate calendar with advanced time. So I think those are interesting questions and interesting considerations. I don't know if you have any immediate thoughts, from a staff perspective on that, Alicia. But I see Angela's hand and just want to go back. Yeah.
Wondered where you said it would have to be an open meeting. I think because you're discussing people and like an award things, it would qualify to go into closed.
We've had the discussion internally and it's not possible.
It's not possible.
Not possible, so at least at this point in time.
Never mind then.
That's okay. No, I appreciate the effort. Yeah. It's
Whether we can do it in subcommittees. I suspect
That might not be possible. I'm not sure, Larry, if you heard Sean, Larry's comment.
no, I didn't hear. Sorry.
we need some advice as to whether you can work in subcommittees.
Mhm.
Because, you know, the number of us, 8 of us, or however, I think are as a whole. So you want to make sure what we're doing would be okay.
Yeah.
I can't speak to that, but we can certainly look into it.
I don't mind reading them all. It's just when you read them all at once. You know, I'm saying, give me 2 weeks to read the incorporated, and give me another 2 weeks to read and score the, you know, the next bunch, and then another couple of weeks, and then at the end of the month, we get together and as a whole and decide.
One thing we, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, it's just that it's so much all at once. No, I'm retired, so I can do that, you know, every day is Saturday for me. But still, it's really challenging.
I feel this, like, I feel this as a staff member, and I feel this as having been a former committee member. I understand where this is for sure. I'll leave it to Sean. In terms of what we're talking about in terms of the subcommittee, we can certainly look into the process of that. And we'll report back about that. In terms of breaking it down, I'm confident that we would need to stream this, and it would not be in closed session. It would be, so again, so like in keeping in mind the corporate calendar and the requirement for timing and notice prior to that, I think that would be the biggest challenge. But depending on the outcome of the subcommittee review question, we could probably figure something out. We could, yeah.
Okay. I saw Brenna's hand. I'm going to go to Brenna, and then I have a follow-up question. Brenna? Oh, you're on mute, just so you know.
I'm sorry, I do agree that cutting it up and breaking it up might be a little bit more cumbersome, especially if there's like grading happening in the subcommittees and stuff. What if there was a potential for the subcommittees to just create summaries that might be helpful for others, that kind of take down the cumbersomeness of the whole application? But that could be created by a subcommittee as opposed to staff. So instead of breaking them up completely and discussing them in their own individualities, just making very clear so that we can assess each application and understand it like a title page or a summary, not like more like an abstract than a summary, I guess, where it just kind of summarizes for those who, you know, as much as they need all the information, might not be able to float through everything. So that might be a thing that a subcommittee could do to support the process without taking it away.
That is a really interesting idea, because it also is in keeping with the peer review dimension of the process. I don't and I think it's an idea worth, well, it's up to the committee whether it's worth considering. I didn't mean to say my take or whatever, but Alicia, what are in terms of like our next meeting, which we will be reviewing, I think there's a lot of ideas that have been shared that I think will require some follow-up. I'm not sure if we are able to do that by this time, but it sounds like at the very least we can get a summary combined with the distribution of the applications. Is my assumption correct? That the rest would probably have to wait? Yeah.
So I think there are some things that we can implement immediately, like we can make sure that you have access to the checklist, is that everyone feels comfortable that the information is contained within and that the applications are ready for review. Number one. Secondly, a summary would be possible. And maybe I can work with you to talk about what that looks like exactly, before we just rely upon a summary to be included with this. Because I also have concerns about editorializing the applications. But again, if it's purely objective and based on the applicant's submission and not about the content within, then it should be. Yeah, so those things we can do immediately. In terms of breaking down into subcommittees, I don't know how that process is, but I can get back to the group on that. And if it is something that we can implement, then I suggest that we do so. I don't know if that would require a motion or not upon the review process or in the next meeting as we move forward, but I will check into this information. I think that's everything, but there are some things we can do to make this process more seamless immediately.
Thank you, Alicia. And also I want to credit Brenna and Miranda on the subcommittee that are reviewing the application as well. I know that's going to come back to us. That again, that will streamline things as well. I just wanted to double check. So we've already summarized what we've discussed so far, but in terms of that overall process of the things like the thresholds and the discussion, those are still good with everybody? I see some nodding heads, and otherwise just an absence of objections. All right, then I think unless there's further questions or comments, then I think I think we have completed our review for the context. And thank you everybody for brainstorming some really interesting ideas for improving this process. And I know talking about process is one of people's least, not just this group, but people in general, least favorite things to do. So thank you for bearing with us. And we've saved ourselves a lot of time next meeting. Okay, so the next item on our agenda, and we are approaching the end of our meeting, but we are very close to the end of the agenda as well. Let me just rearrange my things here. So we are on to subcommittee and task force updates. So there's a cultural forum task force. I can start the discussion here and then I would defer to Donna, but I want to start just by expressing my apologies to the committee because of my not being available for not only the last meeting, but a few meetings for the cultural forum task force. That contributed to some confusion and so my sincere apologies for that. We did, many of you, well, you all received the notice of canceling the event that had been scheduled for October 11th. That was the product of some discussion between each of the subcommittee members and staff. So after the last meeting of the CVC, and I'm just relaying my experience. I don't speak for anybody else's, but in discussion with Alicia and our ability to meet that October 11th date, I expressed that I would defer to the will of the group, but ultimately it seemed like maybe some of the agreement on moving forward with the 11th was more out of accommodation than our genuine ability to carry off a significant event for October 11th. And then in that case, especially since it seemed like we had sort of become a little disconnected, that it was better for us to sort of hit reset and just come back together as a committee. But I asked that, again, deferring to other subcommittee members. So Alicia checked in, of course, with Donna and Yasmina, and I think we were in unanimous agreement on at least the need to sort of reset and of the 11th not really being achievable. So we met last week as a subcommittee and reviewed centering, what is the purpose of the cultural forum? What are we ultimately trying to accomplish with it, and to organize activities really around that? And then it would need to be a larger forum, or sorry, overusing the word forum, a larger event than what we could accomplish in an evening. So the subcommittee we reviewed some of those things and oops, sorry. Just going to stop sharing my screen there because you don't need to see the agenda. But the subcommittee had more discussion on that and some ideas of some of the activities that would go together. And so for our next meeting, we're looking at carving out some more specific outcomes from that. And part of that was also a combination of opportunities to gather information from the community, but also to move forward some things from our plan, our cultural plan, that have not, that we have struggled to move forward, like the demonstrating the value of arts, culture, and heritage in the community. So for instance, having, say, a speaker to highlight ways that has been achieved in other communities and so forth. Anyway, I'm going to defer to Donna to fill in any gaps in my summaries here. Anything that you would add, Donna?
I wouldn't add anything, Sean. I think you captured it. In the agenda package, there's a document there that addresses sort of at the high level what we'd like to bring forward to the group to approve to be accomplished. We gave ourselves a little bit of an a longer runway. Sean has pushed the ideas forward by doing a draft of an outline of what that could look like and the kind of activities and so on that we can do. Which is still just in very draft form. So we're not sharing anything like that today. And I think we're getting back together again. I don't remember, in November at some point. We were looking forward to getting back together and getting together on a regular basis to create an agenda, to understand one of the big missing questions here is, what is our budget for this? Where does the fund, and we don't, and I know Alicia and Virginia are working on that. Where do the funds come from? How much would we have in funds? Do we have to fundraise? Hopefully not. Do we not have, but do we have to fundraise separately for any of the things that we'd like to do so that we can bring real value to these couple of days? And as Sean said, understand and help the decision makers as well as the community, and understand the economic and social value of culture, to which would lead into some of the things that are addressed on this document here. So we're proceeding as such and looking at doing something in the new year, perhaps February, perhaps a little bit later than that. Definitely not past April, something along those lines.
Thanks, Donna. Absolutely. Totally echo that. And thanks for pointing out the summary in the agenda package too. It's up there now. So any questions or comments on that process so far? And also just to clarify that in terms of any proposed agenda, overarching agenda, we'll bring that back to the committee before for discussion before any actioning. Seeing none. Cool. Okay, so if there aren't any comments on that, we'll move on to the next item, which is new business, which is the Paul Mall Alley Display Project update. So with that, I'll defer to Alicia.
Excellent. So we closed the Paul Mall Alley Display Project application process at the end of September. We've compiled the applications and they've now been uploaded onto a OneDrive link and provided to the task force members who will be reviewing them. We're meeting on October 26th and we should have that information ready to share after that point in time about the successful applicants. We got a great, I think that we had quite a number show up this year. I think there was closer to 15 complete submissions, and I was very happy to see them. So nice variety, and I'm excited to move forward with this.
Thanks, Alicia, and thanks to all the reviewers. Any questions? Isabel.
Will it be will it be live publicly?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
I didn't quite hear you, Alicia.
like October. Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Will it be published publicly?
The information, the results will be published publicly, but the deliberation process, as it's the task force, is not a public process.
Thanks very much. Any other comments, questions? No? Okay, then we'll move on to the next item, which is correspondence. And because there's none noted in the agenda, I'm assuming we have none. I see some head shaking no. So that brings us to the next meeting, which is to be determined due to ACAP application intake review, as more than one meeting will be required in November in order for us to go through that, more likely than not. So I suspect there'll be a poll circulating either by Doodle or some other similar software. So please keep an eye out in your emails for that. And this is as much of a reminder to me as to everybody else, but to fill it out as soon as you get it, as soon as you know your schedule. And we'll look forward to seeing you then. Is there? Oh, yes, Alicia.
You have a meeting scheduled at this point in time, though, for Wednesday, November 15th. And I think the subsequent meeting will then happen after that, after we've determined everyone's availability.
Oh, great. Okay, so we will meet Wednesday, November 15th, you said?
And then again, we'll review after that as well, likely.
Okay, perfect. Okay, wonderful. Sounds good. All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Is that, oh, Larry, seconded by Donna. All those in favor, please indicate so. Motion carries. And we're early. Look at this, folks, 5:47. Thank you very much, everybody. Wonderful to see you all, as always. Really looking forward to the work ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.